So what exactly did the School of Prophets, did Joseph bring in people that he maybe thought could someday be apostles and prophets? Was that what that was?
That was certainly part of it, I'm sure. But the term School of the Prophets actually was used in other places. They used it at Harvard and Yale Divinity School. It was a common thing for a kind of seminary, a place to train people to preach the gospel. And he was training missionaries. There were visions of the Savior here. There were remarkable experiences reported not just by Joseph, but by others. It's really an amazing place, and yet I think there's a lesson to be drawn from it, which is that really significant places don't have to be enormous and grand.
Wow, this is underwhelming in terms of size. I mean,
It is.
It's almost shockingly small, given everything that occurred in this.
Yeah, you've heard of the School of the Prophets, and you imagine something really magnificent.
Yeah, but here
this
we
was
are. This is the top. This is the looks like the northeast corner of the Newell K. Whitney store.
Yeah.
So downstairs they're selling goods and services and everything else, and upstairs is one of the most holy places.
Yeah. Yeah, there were visions of the Savior here. There were remarkable experiences reported not just by Joseph, but by others. It's really an amazing place, and yet I think there's a lesson to be drawn from it, which is that really significant places don't have to be enormous and grand.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Well, the simplicity of everything around the Savior's actual life.
Very small.
There was nothing from a manger
Yeah.
to, throughout his life.
Yeah, so, while there are grander things going on and grander personages abroad in the land, the really important things of that period of the 19th century are happening here, in a little humble village, in a little tiny room, in a little tiny store. It's something to contemplate. Probably could get a good sacrament meeting sermon.
There's something about a tiny pebble that eventually turns into
and fills the
earth.
Yeah.
And this would be the tiny pebble, at least for our purposes.
Yeah.
So what exactly did the School of Prophets, did Joseph bring in people that he maybe thought could someday be apostles and prophets? Was that what that was?
That was certainly part of it, I'm sure. But the term School of the Prophets actually was used in other places. They used it at Harvard and Yale Divinity School. It was a common thing for a kind of seminary, a place to train people to preach the gospel. And he was training missionaries. And so they had a whole range of subjects that were taught here, eventually Hebrew, for one thing, but also, for a lot of these people, English grammar, because these were simple, unlettered farm folk and so on, who are going to go out and take the gospel to the world, and they're trying to polish them a little bit, teach them some geography, some book learning, and that kind of thing.
That's pretty cool. I hadn't even considered that. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because, the church is very committed to education now.
Yeah.
They always have been. It always has been. You think of the university system now, but given the size of the church in 1833 through 36, thereabouts, this is a pretty ambitious thing. Yeah. They didn't have that many buildings, and a part of them was given over to what we would call adult education.
Which makes sense, because a lot of the early converts were very humble, simple, farming type people, like you say, who may never have learned.
I've heard it said that Palmyra is the cradle of the Restoration. Kirtland is the school of the Restoration.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so is it true then that somewhere here or in this building that the D&C 89 was received? Was it received here, or was it the impetus for
it? Well, both, I think. It seems to have been received here because Emma was a bit disgusted by what was happening. You can imagine this is a group of rough, unlettered, uncultured folk, and they're chewing tobacco and spitting it out and all that sort of thing. She had to clean it up. And so she complained, and in the course of it, Joseph receives a revelation that has marked the church ever since. It's one of the things most widely known about Latter-day Saints is that they don't drink, they don't smoke.
Yeah.
And that goes back to here.
The word of wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That is that's one of the flags that we wave.
Yeah.
And so it happened here. It would have happened here. Yeah.
A lot of revelations received here in the adjoining room, a lot of schooling that went on here. understand, I've been told that Brigham Young did not enjoy his Hebrew lessons. He said, "Can I go out and do something I can do?" Like he worked on the Kirtland Temple, made some of the windows in the Kirtland Temple and so on, but with almost anything rather than doing Hebrew
He
studies.
sounds like my kind of guy.
Didn't want to do that. On the other hand, some were really good. Joseph apparently was quite gifted at that, and Orson Pratt,
Hebrew or
at Hebrew.
Oh.
I don't know that he ever got really good at it,
Yeah.
but he worked out the short time he had, the little bit of time that he had, and made real progress.
Where
And-
would they even have gotten materials?
well, they brought in a fellow named Joshua Satius who had done a grammar and so he could teach. He was a dentist, actually, I think, by trade, and an itinerant teacher of Hebrew and that kind of thing. And so they were hungry for learning. The other one that really got Hebrew down fairly well, as you might expect, would be Orson Pratt,
Why would I expect that?
because he was a very bright fellow,
Was he?
mathematician, astronomer, and so on. And he took to it like a fish to water. I mean, he loved it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So how do we know how many they would end up having in a room this size
Not
to do
very
these
many. You
lessons?
couldn't possibly fit very many in a room this size. So
Yeah, and-
I don't know,
and
20 maybe.
I seem to recall that it was really hot. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't have the air conditioning that we've put in.
No, I can imagine. Although they typically did the school in the winter, apparently, where it was harder to work outside. So,
Well, and with the fireplace right here, I guess
Yeah.
that would make sense too.
but it probably wasn't very warm either.
Now, you mentioned there were some other revelations that took place in another part of this.
Yeah, there's an area called the Revelation Room.
Should we go check that
Yeah,
out?
we can go check that out. Yeah.
Sounds good. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like the Revelation Room is twice as big as the School of the Prophets.
It is. Yeah.
Maybe they could have moved out here for comfort.
And, maybe they did at some point or
Yeah.
another. We don't know the microgeography of the School of the Prophets. They may have moved around a little bit. But I think it's important for people to recognize that a vast number of the canonized revelations that we have in the Doctrine and Covenants come out of Kirtland. Look through the list. There are a lot of doctrinal developments in Nauvoo, but very few canonized sections. Many of those are received here, or very close to here anyway,
Yeah.
in this area. So Kirtland is an amazingly fruitful place. The church is being invented in a way in Kirtland. And it changes dramatically from 1830 to 1840, and a lot of that's going on here.
Yeah. It is kind of neat to contrast and compare where we were just even in this episode on our trip, where the genesis of things in Palmyra to here
Yeah.
with they've got a town now, basically, I mean, with buildings and assets.
Yeah.
And then, like you say, the flood of revelations that are now coming. Now, are these coming post key reception in the temple or pre-keys?
Many of them are coming before the keys.
Okay.
They still don't understand the idea of keys yet quite in the full sense. And the church is not only growing in terms of doctrine, but also in terms of membership. I mean, Sidney Rigdon was a preacher in this area, and so when his congregation, or many of them, joined the church, the center of gravity of the church shifts from New York to Ohio. I mean, this is a dramatic change.
Yes.
And suddenly, from being a sort of ragtag small group of people, it becomes a relatively large group with this charismatic, formerly professional preacher, Sidney Rigdon.
And was that primarily the reason that they came here, or the Lord guided them here, or was it because he wanted a house built and this was the place to do it? Or did that come to them after they'd arrived?
It comes to them after they've arrived, but I have no doubt that he wanted to move them this way. And New York was a difficult place. They were being persecuted there and harassed and so on. They come out here and there's strength in numbers.
Yeah.
So this becomes, with Missouri, the headquarters of the church until that all collapses.
So with Sidney's congregation, the membership of the church then increases
Hugely.
with local
Yeah.
Ohio people.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people that become relatively well known in later church history who first affiliated here in this area because they'd come under the influence of Sidney Rigdon or were on the periphery of the area. So.
Yes, yeah. So when Joseph Smith was receiving these, what we now refer to as sections of the Doctrine and Covenants. At the time, obviously, that wasn't their name. I'm now receiving section 9.
Right.
Right. Who was, generally speaking, his scribe then? We know it was Oliver Cowdery with the Book of Mormon, but who was...
And Oliver was involved in some of these. There were various people. And we have descriptions of Joseph receiving revelation, that he would get a kind of translucent look and just begin, this is not the way it always happened, but sometimes just describing or saying the words of the revelation, someone there eagerly writing it down as he's speaking. There are other revelations, one that was received not here, but not too far from here in Hiram, where Joseph and Sidney both see the vision of the 3 degrees of glory.
Yes.
And then afterwards, they try to write it down and express what they saw. This is what I saw. It's kind of a retrospective, not very long after the revelation.
Right.
And they would actually read to each other and kind of correct each other. Did you see this? Yes, I saw that.
I see this, I see that,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I actually was in a scene where we recreated that.
Yeah.
It was really quite moving, actually.
And again, it's in a very small room.
Yes.
Again, huge things. I assume the walls kind of disappeared and they saw the kingdoms and
Well,
so
and there
on.
were other people in the room
Yes.
who did not see
it.
what they were seeing.
They sometimes said they felt the influence.
Right.
They could tell something remarkable was going on, but they couldn't see it.
Yeah. That's cool. Wow, this is neat. All right, show me more. What else
Okay.
we got?
Go on through.